Hello there. I'm your friend Teacher Sam. Today we will embark on an interesting journey of learning how to describe where you live in English. This skill is not just about painting a picture of your surroundings, but it's also a crucial stepping stone in becoming a more fluent and confident English speaker. Imagine you're meeting new people and you want to share a bit about your life. One of the first things you might talk about is where you live. But how do you do that in English? How do you express the charm of your small town or the hustle and bustle of your city? How do you describe the tranquility of your countryside home or the convenience of your city center flat? Understanding how to accurately put these into words can significantly improve your communication skills, especially if English is not your first language. So, ready to explore this fascinating topic? Let's dive in. To begin with, we need to familiarize ourselves with some basic vocabulary. Let's dive right in. First off, let's talk about the types of places you might live in. You could live in an apartment, which is a self-contained housing unit that occupies part of a building, or perhaps you live in a house, a building for human habitation that stands alone. There's also a studio, a one-room apartment where the living and sleeping areas are combined. Now let's consider the location. You might live in a city, a large and significant town, characterized by high human development. Or perhaps you're in a village, a clustered human settlement smaller than a town. And let's not forget the countryside, the geographic area that is located outside towns and cities, known for its natural beauty and open spaces. Next, we have words to describe what's around you. Maybe there's a park nearby, a public green space for recreation. Perhaps there's a supermarket, a large self-service shop offering a wide variety of food and household products. And of course, there might be a school, an institution for educating children and young adults in your vicinity. So to recap, we've learned some basic words related to housing, like apartment, house, and studio. We've also covered words that describe locations such as city, village, and countryside. And we've introduced words that paint a picture of your surroundings, like park, supermarket, and school. Now that we've got our vocabulary set, we can start forming sentences. Great job on learning the basic vocabulary. Now, we will use these words to form simple sentences. Let's start with the basics. When talking about where you live, you generally begin with the phrase, I live in. This can be followed by the type of residence and the place. For example, I live in an apartment in New York. Simple, isn't it? Now, let's add a little more detail. You can describe what's near your home. We use the phrase, there is a, or there are. For example, there is a park near my apartment, or there are many shops around my house. What about if you live in a rural area? You might say, I live in a farmhouse in the countryside, or perhaps there is a big barn near my house. The beauty of the English language is its flexibility. You can mix and match these phrases to suit your situation. For instance, I live in a cozy apartment in the heart of the city. There is a bustling market nearby. Remember, these sentences are just the foundation. They give the listener a basic understanding of where you live. As we progress, we'll learn to add more details, making our descriptions more vivid and interesting. But don't rush it. Learning a new language is like building a house. You start with a solid foundation, which in this case are these simple sentences. Once you're comfortable with this, you can start adding the walls, the roof, and finally, the decorative touches. So, take your time. Practice these simple sentences. Use the vocabulary you've learned. Experiment with different combinations. And most importantly, have fun with it. Fantastic. We've made some simple sentences. Let's move on to making more complex descriptions. Now that we've mastered simple sentences, we can move on to more detailed descriptions. Let's dive into describing our homes or apartments with more depth. Imagine the place where you live. What are the unique characteristics that make it stand out? Is it an old Victorian house with a charming porch? Or perhaps it's a modern apartment with a stunning city view? To describe your dwelling place in detail, you'll want to use adjectives. Adjectives are words that describe or modify other words, giving more information about them. For instance, you might say, I live in a spacious two-story house with a red brick exterior. Here, spacious and red are adjectives that provide more information about your house. Now let's talk about the surroundings. Maybe your apartment is in the heart of a bustling city, or your house is nestled in a quiet, leafy suburb. You could say, My apartment is located in a lively neighborhood with a myriad of restaurants and shops. Or, my house is in a serene suburb, surrounded by towering pine trees. When describing places, it's also useful to mention landmarks or special features nearby. For instance, a beautiful park with a playground and a serene pond is located near my house. Or, just down the street from my apartment, there's a bustling market that sells everything from fresh produce to antique furniture. Remember, the goal is to paint a vivid picture with your words so the person you're speaking to can visualize your living space and its surroundings. You don't need to list every single detail, but try to highlight the most interesting or unique features. Feel free to use comparisons and contrasts as well. For instance, you might say, despite being in the city center, my apartment is surprisingly quiet. This gives your description a dynamic edge and makes it more engaging. Great job. Now you can describe your living place in detail. With practice, you'll be able to use these techniques to describe not just your home, but any place you visit. Remember, language is a powerful tool that can help you share your world with others. Let's continue to explore it together. Now that we've learned all this, it's time to practice. Take a moment and look around you. Think about your surroundings and how you describe them using the new vocabulary and sentence structures we've just explored. Are you living in a bustling city or a tranquil countryside? Is your abode a cozy apartment or an expansive house? How would you describe the colors, the ambiance, the architecture? Remember, the key is to paint a vivid picture with your words. You want to transport your listener to your home, to your city, to your world. And don't forget to include the smaller details, the sounds you hear, the scents you smell, the people you see. These finer points breathe life into your description and make it that much more engaging. We started off by learning some basic vocabulary, words that help us identify and describe different types of residences and locations. We then moved on to forming simple sentences, where we learned how to string these words together in a coherent manner. And finally, we delved into the art of detailed description, using adjectives and adverbs to add depth to our expression. Remember, using the right vocabulary to describe where you live can greatly improve your English speaking skills. Keep practicing and you'll master it in no time. Until next time, this is Teacher Sam signing off. Take care